All right. We are live. Welcome back to WMAC now with your host Chuck Stevenson, and welcome to the the WMMA Scene Report, our weekly show where we go over everything in the world of the women's divisions of mixed martial arts. So big news today was revealed that Kat Zingano is no longer a member of the UFC. So we'll be talking that a little bit later. And then we'll also be talking about, this upcoming weekend, there's two pay-per-view events. There's UFC 241 and Ryzen. And we're going to be going over, which one is a bigger bang for the buck bargain. First up, though, we're going to go over the past weekend's results, starting with Invicta FC 36. Just going to go real quick through the results here, guys. First up, Julia Audolino defeated Megan Colley via unanimous decision in the bantamweight division. Audolino climbed to 1-0. Colley fell to 0-1. This is actually a pretty good fight. Very interesting take on how a fighter who prefers to fight at distance shows what they can do if they can manage to keep it at the range that they prefer. Next up, at 135 pounds, Aaron Harp defeated Autumn Norton via split decision. Norton got bloodied up. Harp climbed to 2-0. Norton fell to 0-1. Next up, at 125 pounds, Caitlin Sammons defeated Chantel Coates via submission due to rear naked choke at 4 minutes 10 seconds of the second round. Sammons climbed to 2-0. Coates fell to 1-1. So Coates was lighting Sammons up a little bit in the first round with the striking. Then Coates decided she wasn't going to play around too much, and took Sammons decided she wasn't going to play around in the second round. Took Coates down, got the rear naked choke pretty easily, if I recall correctly. Next up was an atomweight bout. Elise Anderson defeated Katie Saul via split decision. Anderson climbed to 5-1. Saul fell to 3-4. This is actually a pretty good fight, back and forth. Saul did very well coming in on less than 2 weeks' notice. Interesting tidbit that came out after the fight. Didn't know this before. Apparently, Elise Anderson suffers from Raynaud's syndrome. It's where she loses circulation, I guess, in the extremities, and it affects her feet. And she actually couldn't. It was actually causing her extreme pain, I guess, in the second and third round. She still managed to gut it out, but then had to be carried out of the ring and went back to the backstage. And I think the paramedics had her on oxygen and stuff. So gutsy win for Elise Anderson. Next up was the fight of the night, definitely, and it was awarded so. Victoria Leonardo defeated Stephanie Geltmacher at flyweight via unanimous decision. Leonardo climbed to 6-1. Geltmacher fell to 4-1. This fight had a little bit of everything, but Victoria Leonardo, the rangier fighter, the taller, longer, rangier fighter, able to use her superior striking skills to keep Geltmacher on the outside for a good bit of it. Geltmacher, though, very tough, always pressing forward on the action. She just needs to clean up her striking a bit. Too much coming forward, winning punches. She needs to tighten the striking up a little bit, and she'll do much better. A bloody fight, though, man. Geltmacher was bloody afterwards. Best fight of the night so far. Probably the best fight of that whole weekend. Next up was another atomweight bout. Jessica Delboni defeated Lindsey Van Zant via split decision. Delboni climbed to 9-1. Van Zant fell to 6-2. This one was probably this one seemed like a little bit of an uneventful fight. But then again, it was hard to follow up on the flyweight bout before it. I was worried about Van Zandt getting out-muscled by Delboni, who had come down from strawweight originally. And to me, that seemed like a lot of the case, a big case. Yeah, that seemed to be the case for a bit of this fight. Next up was the co-main event. Emily Ducote, making her Invicta FC debut, defeated Janeza Morandin via first round knockout, 4 minutes 3 seconds. Ducote climbed to 8-5. Morandin fell to 10-3. This ended up being at a catch weight of 119 because Morandin just totally missed weight again. And honestly, this is what you call poetic justice. She missed weight, and then she got knocked out. So congrats to Emily Ducote on a successful Invicta FC debut. And then the main event, featherweight championship, Pam Sorensen defeated Caitlin Young via unanimous decision. Sorensen climbed to 8-3. Young fell to 10-10. Young did good on the feet, but man, she left herself open to takedowns constantly. She just had too much of an upright Muay Thai stance. She's still Young is definitely mostly a Muay Thai fighter. And she left herself too open to takedowns all the time. And then she gave up her back constantly, which was, one of her biggest weaknesses before. And she's gotten better, but it's still very much a glaring weakness. So congrats to Pam Sorensen, the new Invicta FC featherweight champ. Okay, next up was UFC on ESPN Plus 14. Shevchenko versus Carmouche 2. First up, at flyweight, Veronica Macedo defeated Polyana Viana via first-round submission due to armbar. Macedo climbed to 6-3. Viana fell to 10-4. Macedo pulled that armbar, man. It was like she pulled it out of nowhere. Very impressed with that submission. Next up, Marina Rodriguez defeated Tisha Torres in a strawweight bout via unanimous decision. Rodriguez stayed technically undefeated at 12-0. She does have one draw on her record. Torres fell to 10-5. Very good win for Rodriguez. Another good example of using your superior length, height, and reach to bully Torres around, especially in the clinch. She was really bullying Torres. This fight, can't remember if it even hit the ground. I think it did briefly. And then finally, in the main event, flyweight championship fight, Valentina Shevchenko defeated Liz Carmouche via unanimous decision in an absolute stinker and a snoozer of a fight. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I feel like I talked about it enough in my post-fight initial reaction video. It was live at the time, but you can go see it again if you want to. And then on Dana White's Contender Series on Tuesday at bantamweight, Sarah Alpar defeated Shanna Young via second-round submission due to rear naked choke. Time was 2 minutes 55 seconds of round 2. Alpar climbed to 9-4. Young fell to 6-2. Nice submission for Alpar. She made some mistakes in the first round that I think cost her that round. It was kind of close, though. And then the second round, she was able to get her way to the submission. She did get signed to the UFC. However, Dana White told her he wanted her to go down to flyweight. Personally, I think, why make her go down to flyweight? You need bantamweights. He needs bantamweights more than he needs flyweights right now. But I think he wants more finishers in the flyweight division. I don't know what he's thinking. I guess he figured Alpar's kind of small. I think she's pretty short for a bantamweight. Yeah, she's like 5'4", so kind of short for bantamweight. But I still think he should have kept her at bantamweight because, she's just. They need bantamweights right now. The bantamweight division is very shallow right now, thanks to some of them moving down to flyweight, and some fighters moving up to featherweight temporarily, taking them out of the division. All right, so that was this past weekend's results. Time for the news. First up, per Gon Kakutogi on Twitter, Nanika Kawamura is off of Deep Jewels 25 on 1st September after either failing her pre-fight medicals or failing to make her pre-fight medicals appointment. I'm not sure what exactly it was. I was going by the translation on Twitter, so not really quite sure of that. In other Deep Jewels news, the promotion announced their 26th event in October at the legendary Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. However, an exact date has not been announced yet. The UFC announced 3 fights for December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day in Washington, D.C. First up is a bantamweight bout between Aspen Ladd, 8-1, versus Yana Kunitskaya, 12-4. Next up is a strawweight fight between Claudia Gadelha, 17-4, versus Cynthia Calvillo, 8-1. And then finally, today they announced Courtney Casey versus Verna Jandiroba, also at strawweight. I forgot to look up the records before now. So some good fights. Ladd versus Kunitskaya. I think it's a good bounce back fight for Ladd, but it could also be a good climb up the ranks fight for Kunitskaya. The next fight, Gadelha versus Calvillo. They keep pushing Calvillo up the rankings. Meanwhile, they're trying to. I think they're trying. Excuse me. I believe that the UFC is also trying to lower Gadelha out of the rankings to, mix them up. They've been really trying to mix up the rankings a bit at strawweight. They've been fairly stagnant for, honestly, the last 4 years that they've been around, or 3 years that they've been around. Yeah, 4 years now. Especially at the top, and they're finally starting to, some of the fighters are starting to catch up to the ones that were at the top for so long. But I think honestly, I believe that the UFC is also trying to help them along. And Calvillo still getting that big company push that I've talked about before. I mean, she's never fought a fighter ranked lower than her the whole time she's been in the UFC. And then Courtney Casey versus Verna Jandiroba. That's going to be a tough one for Casey. I think this fight could drop her out of the top 15. I know she's like right at 14, 15 right now, I believe. I'll have to check. But, yeah, it's going to be a tough fight for her. Jandiroba's tough, especially on the ground. However, if Casey finally learns to use her height, her reach, she can make it tough on Jandiroba. And I'd like to see her do something like that, but I'm not getting my hopes up this late in the game with her. Okay, next up, CSAC announced that they have suspended Aspen Ladd's license at bantamweight after reviewing her official and fight night weigh-ins from her fight versus Jermaine Darandami. So I did a whole video on this. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but she gained I think 18% of her weight back between the official weigh-ins and her fight night weigh-ins, which is over the 10% that the CSAC normally allows. Anything over 10%, they recommend a move up to the next weight class. But with her, it was 18%. And then they probably figured, she looked like crap at the weigh-ins, at the official weigh-ins the day before. So they're suspending her bantamweight license in California only. However, they have made a notation with the Association of Boxing Commissions and Fight Sports, and they have also been in contact apparently with the Washington, D.C. Athletic Commission or officials. I don't know how that works in D.C. So we'll have to see if that fight even goes down. Or if it possibly change weight class. Next up, UFC has has set a date for the Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Michelle Watterson fight. The date was set for 12th October. They've officially announced the venue as Tampa, Florida. In addition to the previously announced headliner, they've also added a flyweight bout of J.J. Aldrich, 7-3, versus Lauren Mueller, 5-2. This could be a do-or-die fight for Mueller. But it's also a must-win for Aldrich because she lost her first fight at flyweight to Macy Barber, so she needs to get a good win. Next up, former WBC and IBF boxing champion Ava, the Lady of Boxing Knight, 18-2-5 in boxing, has signed with Bellator MMA and will make her MMA debut against Shannon Galgary, 3-3 MMA, at Bellator 228 on 28th September in Inglewood, California. I'll be honest, I've never seen any of Ava Knight's fights. I don't really get into ladies boxing too much. I don't know how much she's been training MMA or who she's been training with or anything. I haven't really seen anything about it. So we'll see how she does compared to the likes of Heather Hardy, who did not do fare so well in Bellator, or what's her name? Amanda Serrano, who is 1-0-1 in MMA, but making her return, or she's supposed to make her return to MMA in December in Combate Americas. In Invicta FC news, so they've announced the dates for their next 3 events. On 6th September is the Phoenix Rising Series 2, or the Phoenix Series 2, is a single night flyweight tournament. On 4th October is headlined by an atomweight championship between the champion Jin Fry, 8-4, versus Ashley Cummins, 7-4. And then on 1st November is headlined by the flyweight championship between Vanessa Porto, 21-8, versus Karina Rodriguez, who is 8-3. I did a whole video on all 3 of these events, and I did a video yesterday or early this morning, really, detailing the full lineup for the Phoenix Series 2 tournament. I think it looks pretty darn good. After you're done watching this, please go check it out. At flyweight, Jessica I versus Viviana Araújo has been added to UFC 245. That's on 14th December in Las Vegas. That's an interesting fight. Viviana Araújo getting a big push up the rankings, very fast. I mean, I was the last title challenger. Granted, she got knocked out in the 2nd round. Araújo just pieced up Alexis Davis in her last bout after a successful UFC debut at bantamweight, and then she moved down to flyweight. Araújo has very fast hands, and she hits hard. It should make for an interesting fight. Man, if she gets past I, though, I'd say maybe one more fight and then a title fight for her. Very fast push for Araújo. Next up, after being flagged by USADA for an as-yet unnamed substance, Estela Nunes is out of her fight against Angela Hill in Mexico City on September 21st. Replacing Nunes will be fellow Brazilian and UFC debutant Ariana Carnelossi, who is 12-1. So Estela Nunes, yet another Brazilian fighter, pops by USADA before they can even make their debut. Melissa Gatto just happened a month or so ago. I believe, according to the article I read on MMA Fighting, this is like the 4th Brazilian in 2 months that got popped by USADA. So, just saying, must be something in the water down there. And then last 2 items, or no, just last one item. Flyweight fight between Katlyn Chookagian versus Jennifer Maia has been added to UFC 249 at Madison Square Garden on 2nd November. This should be a good fight. I'd say it's possibly a #1 contender fight. Chookagian's coming off a win over Joanne Calderwood a few months back. They wanted her to fight Shevchenko for the title at UFC 242, which is next month, I believe. However, Chookagian, I guess her wedding was set for that weekend, so she didn't want to have to change her wedding date, which I understand. That's a lot of money lost. Jennifer Maia is also coming off a win in a rematch with Roxanne Modafferi about a month or so ago. Also, it's good. It's Chookagian should be able to bring in a decent number of tickets for the UFC because it's in Madison Square Garden, and she's a New York girl. All right, guys, so that was the news. So usually we go into the weekly edition of what I like to call the fuckery, which is the UFC rankings update. So I don't have the pictures immediately available. I was running short on time. However, I'm going to post them up on Instagram afterwards. So I'll post a link in the description when I do. The UFC switched their rankings 3 times within a span of a week. So they listed an update for the 5th, which was last Monday. Well, which technically they released them on Tuesday. However, on Friday or Saturday, they released another update to the rankings, which totally different. A lot of changes. And then finally, today, they released them for dated yesterday, the 13th. So I took screenshots of all three, and I'll be uploading them to my Instagram, which is at LETO1776. And I'll also be posting them to my Twitter, which is at now WMMA. That'll be, I'll try to do that immediately after the stream. So please be sure to check that out. In other news, little segment I like to call Welcome to the Scene, to the little friendly welcome to some of the newest subscribers. So welcome Sean joined 6 days ago. Kelly Huff joined 4 days ago, and Gordon Morris also joined 4 days ago. So welcome to the scene, guys. And then finally, we'll make this a little bit of a short one. Upcoming fight cards. First up, Friday morning, Eastern time, which is where I'm at, will be one championship. Feature bout will be an MMA bout, of course, at 115 pounds. Stamp Fairtex, who is 1-0 in MMA, versus Asha Roca, 4-0. Now, Stamp Fairtex is the one championship kickboxing and Muay Thai champion. She's going to try to move over to MMA, try to get a third world title. Even though she's never defended the kickboxing world title and has only defended the Muay Thai title once, they're pushing her into MMA. So, Asha Roca, she has more experience in MMA. However, she actually hasn't fought MMA since 2017, so it's been a couple years. She's been doing some pro boxing, I believe, in that time since. I'm going to go with Fairtex on this one. I don't think that they would have matched her up. One championship would have matched up one of their stars or one of their favorites with someone that they were too worried about beating her. So we're going to go with Fairtex on that one. Also, I don't know what Roca's ground skills are like, if she can get Fairtex down. If she can get Fairtex down to the ground, she has a better chance. However, she has to actually do that, which means she has to first stand with Fairtex. And that's not going to be easy for Roca. Next up on Saturday night, UFC 241, Cormier versus Miocic 2. First up, very first fight on the card. All three of these are on the Fight Pass early prelims. So, I mean, I don't know who would do it, but if you're only interested in watching the women's fights, you can just use the Fight Pass early prelims. First up at flyweight, Sabina Mazo, 6-1, taking on Shayna Dobson, 3-2. It's an interesting one. You got the former LFA champ, who's a pretty good striker, and then you got Dobson, who is, I don't know, not really great at anything, but she's tough. I mean, she's tough and she's determined. But I think overall, neither of them have any like truly great wins in their record. I mean, Dobson hasn't won since in 2 years almost. She only fought once versus Lauren Muller. She did have a canceled bout in November to Yanan Wu. I think Dobson had to pull out for some reason. Looking at Mazo, I'm trying to remember. She doesn't have any really impressive wins either at LFA. And then she lost to Marina Moroz, who is moving up weight for the first time in her UFC career. I'm still going to go with Mazo. I just think that her overall skills, and especially in the stand-up, are going to see her through. Next up, we have at strawweight, 115 pounds, Hannah Cifers, 9-3, taking on Jodie Esquibel, 6-5. Both are on the smaller side of strawweights. Esquibel's 5'1", Cifers is 5'2". Esquibel's the older fighter, 33-27. I'm going with Cifers on this one. I just think that Esquibel has long since reached her peak, and I think Cifers is still on the on the come up. I mean, she only has one loss in her last 5 fights, and that was to Macy Barber, who was too big for strawweight anyway at the time. And I think she missed weight on that fight. Actually, let me check. I think she did miss weight. Yeah, she did by half a pound. She weighed 116.5. So it's hard to, can't really hate Cyphers for that. Plus, Escobar is coming in on a 3-fight losing streak. I mean, she has 1 win. I don't think she's won a single fight in the UFC. So yeah, I'm going with Cyphers on this one. And I think she's just better overall skill-wise anymore. And then, so yeah, we'll go with Cyphers. And then finally, Horizon 18 has 2 ladies fights this weekend. Or no, I'm sorry, 3 ladies fights. And this is early Sunday morning if you're watching it Eastern time where I am. I think it starts 1 a.m. Eastern time. First up is Ai Shimizu versus Tabitha Ann Watkins at Super Atomweight. Oh, all 3 fights are at Super Atomweight, by the way, which is roughly 108 pounds. First up is Ai Shimizu, 4-1 versus Tabitha Ann Watkins, 3-2. This should be a good one. They're both about the same experience level. Both skill level is about the same. Shimizu gets by on bullying some of her opponents using their size, like that Sei Kakuo at Deep Jewels, Nanaka Kawamura, and Sayuri Yamaguchi in Deep Jewels as well. She mostly has gotten by on bullying generally smaller opponents. Not that Shimizu's big. She's only 5'1", but I mean, she's muscular and stronger. She gets by a lot on strength. She's coming in off a 3-fight win streak. Watkins coming in with of a pair of losses. First, Lindsey Van Zant at Bellator 5 months ago, and then a month later, she lost to Shannon Galgary. This one's a pick 'em for me. I'm going to go with Watkins. Yeah, because Watkins hasn't had to get by on size or muscle to win her fights. She's shown more skill from what I've seen of her. So I'm going to go with Watkins in this one. Next up, Kana Asakura, 14-4 versus Alicia Zappitella, 5-1. No surprise here. For the 4'11" Zappitella is a smaller fighter. To Asakura's 5'2", or excuse me, 5'2" feet 2 inches. Zappitella is coming off. Both fighters are coming off a loss. Zappitella to Viviane Pereira a little over 2 months ago in Invicta. Asakura is coming off a loss to Miyu Yamamoto, also a little over 2 months ago. In Asakura's case, she lost to a clearly superior wrestler in Yamamoto. Zappitella's case, she couldn't get past Pereira's jab. This is going to be an interesting one because they're both primarily grapplers and wrestlers. Zappitella, though, can bang. As long as you don't have like a superior reach advantage and a really good jab, which is what she lost to against Pereira, Zappitella can hit hard. This is going to be a very, very close fight. I hate to pick against half pipe, but I'm going with Asakura on this one. I just think that the more fight experience is going to pull her through. And then finally, co-main event non-title fight. Ayaka Hamasaki, 18-2, taking on Suwanan Poonsorn, 3-1. Do we even really need to look at the stats? Probably not. We'll do it anyway. Hamasaki is 14 years the elder, 37-23. 1 inch taller, 5'1" - 5'0". And just look at the freaking experience advantage. It's ridiculous. This is the very definition of a gimme fight. I've talked bad about this fight before, and I just don't want to waste time talking about it anymore. I mean, it's obvious. Obviously, it's Hamasaki. If Boonsorn wins, though, if Boonsorn wins, I will be laughing my ass off, though, because it's totally going to blow up in Ryzen space, which they deserve for putting their champ in a non-title bout in their own division. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. All right, so that's the upcoming fights. Time for a little bit of discussion. So Kat Zingano was released by the UFC. From what I've gathered and read on different things, she talks about, she has a project that she's working on. I think she just turned down too many fights recently, or she turned down more than one fight. She says she has a project she's working on that's going to better the sport or something. I don't know. Anyway, she's 1-4 in her last 5. Her lone win coming via unanimous decision against Marion Renaud last year in July. Most recently, she lost to Megan Anderson via first round TKO due to eye injury. She took a toe to her eye. But before that, she lost 3 straight over the course of, 4 years total? 3 years? 16, 17, 18, yeah. To Ronda Rousey, of course, in the first round. Lost the decision to Juliana Pena the next year, and then 2 years later lost to Ketlin Vieira via split decision. Zingano she's never honestly been more than a part-time fighter. I mean, she's only fought once a year, if that, since 2011. She did fight twice last year. So the big question is, where does she go now if she's going to stay in fighting? Which it seems like she does. She wants to, but I don't know. Big question is, where does she go? I would say the most likely candidate would be Bellator. She can go fight at featherweight there, not have to cut as much. I mean, she's getting older. She's 37. Yeah, she's 37 years old. She won't have to cut as much weight for them. Another one could be Ryzen. She'd go fight King Reina, or she can fight, I don't know. Well, really, that's about it in Ryzen. Unless they bring in someone specifically for her, which I doubt they would do that. Another thing could be she could wait a year, see if PFL brings back the 155-pound tournament. She can go up 2 weight classes. Sarah Kaufman did it. She could probably do well there. And then finally, the other last option would be one championship, but one championship doesn't have a division for her. So really, it's a short discussion topic. Her best chances are to try to get signed with Bellator. And you know what? She's a UFC veteran. Scott Coker at Bellator will sign her up right away. And then finally, I want to talk about, there's 2 pay-per-views this weekend, UFC 241 and Ryzen. UFC 241 is going to be like $60 in the US with on top of the paid subscription to ESPN Plus. Ryzen is going to be $19.99 through Fight TV. Which is the better deal for the money? It's hard to say. Strictly from the WMMA point of view, the UFC bouts are both ladies' bouts are on the Fight Pass prelims, which means it's included in your already paid for Fight Pass subscription of $9.99 a month. Whereas all 3 Ryzen bouts are $18.99, $19.99, somewhere around $20. Overall, though, looking at the 2 cards, they're roughly equal as far as bang for the buck. UFC 241 has a big rematch, heavyweight championship fight. It has Diaz versus Pettis, Romero versus Costa. Those are definitely 3 fights that could be worth your $60. Most of the undercard isn't worth it. Brunson versus Heinisch is a good fight. Rafael Sanso is always fun to watch. Then you got Kyung Ho Khan is back at bantamweight versus, I don't know Brandon Davis very well. I have to look him up. He is. Oh, he's off the Contender Series, but he's 1, 2, and 3 in the UFC. Khan is, I think he's coming off a loss in his last UFC fight. Oh, Mr. Perfect. No, he's coming off a win, so he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 2 in the UFC overall. He last fought in February, where he defeated Teruto Ishihara versus first round rear naked choke. Before that, he lost a split decision. I'm a big Kyung Ho Khan fan. Mr. Perfect. Remember him way back in the Spirit MC days. I watched him fight live in 2009. So that's a good deal. I mean, yeah, UFC 241 is actually one of those cards that's worth $60. Then for the $20 for Ryzen, Kyoji Horiguchi versus Kai Asakura. That's kind of meant to be a gimme fight for Horiguchi. Asakura just isn't at that level yet, even though he's at 13 fights deep. He's just not at that level yet. Hamasaki, of course, that's in a absolute gimme fight as well, even worse than Horiguchi fight. What else they have? Mizugaki versus Manel Cape should be good. Asakura versus Zapatella. John Wayne Parr in kickboxing. Yeah, at 165 pounds. Yeah, that's actually a Ryzen kickboxing fight I'm looking forward to. Don't even know his opponent, but I'll watch John Wayne Parr kickbox. Anything else? That's about it for Ryzen, but that's still pretty good for $20. That's pretty good value. So my final verdict is which one is the better bang for the buck? I'm gonna say they're about equal. I mean, Ryzen is $20 and it's like 18 fights overall, or excuse me, 13 bouts, 10 MMA, 3 kickboxing, and one of them is actually worth watching, and it doesn't involve tension, which is amazing. Yeah, I'd say they're roughly equal bang for the buck. So anyway, hey, that's it for this week. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Since you'll be watching the replay. Likes always appreciate it. And hey, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to WMMA now, the fastest growing women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. And we'll see you next week. Oh, next week we'll be starting the shows, doing them Tuesday for the next roughly 6 weeks due to a change in my work schedule. So we'll catch you next Tuesday. We'll be streaming this and doing Contenders series simultaneously. So we'll see you next week, guys. Tuesday.